Okay. Hello, everybody. Welcome tonight to our event with Ann Booth and David Litchfield. I'm Annie Everall from Authors Aloud UK, and my colleague Naomi, who's going to give you a little wave. And I'd also like to welcome Kirsten Grant and all the other colleagues from Templar. We're going to have a lovely evening tonight, and I'm going to now welcome Katie Horwith, who is the editorial director for Templar Books, and I'm going to hand over to her to say a few words and to introduce Anne and David to you. Over to you, Katie.
I'm always amazed at how sensitively the language is presented. It's beautiful language, it's crystalline imagery. Ann Booth. David burst into the world of picture books with his magical The Bear and the Piano. I remember when this came out in 2016, it was really exciting, and it was shortlisted for the Waterston Book Prize. If you look it up online, there's also the Bangkok Book Award, the California Young Reader Award, the Bulgarian National Award for that book.
Wow.
Which is really impressive. Wow. And other books he's written include The Lights of Cotton Rock, Grandad's Secret Giant, and the list of awards he's been shortlisted and nominated for, including the Greener Way, is about as long as my arm. And I also recently discovered he's illustrated When Paul Met Artie, which is about Simon and Garfunkel, and I guess that makes him officially groovy.
Yes, of course, totally.
We are so delighted to have published Ann and David's A Shelter for Sadness. I wanted to shout out to Ruth Simmons, our senior commissioning editor who initially commissioned this, Alison Ritchie, who was the editor on it, and Genevieve Webster, who is responsible for the book's gorgeous design. I think it's a book with a message that is so, so important, that it's okay to make space for what is sometimes a very difficult emotion, and to accept it. And I think the book shows that it's not always a negative emotion, that it's something that you can kind of make space for in your life, build a shelter for your sadness. I love Anne's pared back musical text. David's illustrations are luminous, and they've come together to create a thing of beauty, which I think has arrived in the hands of readers at just the right time. So thank you so much for coming to talk about it.
Thank you, Katie. Just to say to everyone at this point, if you have a question or a comment, please do pop them in the chat box, and we will look at them at the end as we come towards the end of the event. So at this point, can you all switch your mics and cameras off now, please? And we'll begin the evening's conversation. So I'm going to start with you, Katie, as the editorial director. How did you come to acquire the book, and what was it that made you decide to publish it?
Well, as I said before, the book was acquired by my colleague Ruth Simmons, and this arrived in Ruth's inbox from Anne Clark, Ann Booth's agent. I'm so sorry, I got my Anns mixed up. And it was one of those moments in publishing where something arrives and you just go, yes, that one, I want that one. Because it sort of arrived perfectly formed. Like most babies and unlike most picture book texts, it felt complete already. It was so clear what it was doing. And, as soon, I remember Ruth showing it to me and just thinking, yes, this is exactly what sadness is. This is exactly what you need to do with it. And I think it was sort of finally seeing somebody who'd put it in a way that people could understand, that children particularly could really get it. It's the metaphor that makes it so strong and is so well used.
Brilliant. So you've got the book. So what do you then look for when you're choosing the illustrator?
We look for David Litchfield. No. No, I think this was a really important decision for us because I had to talk to Genevieve earlier about it today, and there were two things we thought this needed. One was light and dark, and that is something that you always see in David's work. Light, illumination, color, they're really strong. And so the light and dark moments in this book incredibly important in delivering the theme. And the other one is a Mona Lisa-like enigmatic quality. And why I say that is because, and Jen was really clear about this when she spoke today, you sort of have to, and you can read what the characters are feeling and doing without being shown. And so the way figures are drawn, it allows you to interpret those feelings without being told. And for a book which is about acceptance of emotions, for a book which is about trying to show that something that is quite difficult is acceptable, that just felt incredibly important. It doesn't tell the reader how they should be feeling.
Thank you. I think it's really interesting to think about the whole editorial process. So thank you for being willing to, share your thoughts on that. So if I can then move on to start to talk to Anne and David, perhaps I can ask you both just to tell us a little bit about your background and your writing, illustrating journal. When did you know you wanted to be a writer or an illustrator, for instance? Who would like to go first?
And do you want to go first?
Well, I really like writing from when I was very little.
Can we ask you to turn your mics and cameras off, please? Thank you.
So I started writing, when I was very little. I remember when I was 5 writing a story, and my hand really hurting, but I just couldn't stop until I wrote the end. I didn't. My first book was published in 2014, so there's a long gap where I did lots of different jobs. I was a bookseller for a while, and I taught English in Italy, and I did a theology course for a year. I studied English at university, but I wasn't published, and I didn't really have confidence to be published. But I married and had children, and I was caring for my elderly parents, for 7 or 8 years. And I think I wrote to sort of distract myself from the pressures of that. And through Twitter, I just ended up Nosy Crow. Kate Wilson from Nosy Crow asked me, had I written anything myself? Because I was tweeting lots about other people's work, and she asked me, did I write anything? And so things just happened like that. I went on some Arvon courses. I went on 2 Arvon children's writing courses, and that gave me a bit of confidence as well. But so I'm quite late to it.
Thank you. David, how about you?
Well, I guess I was quite late to becoming an illustrator as well. I had lots of different jobs. I went to art school, and art was always my favorite thing to do throughout kind of normal school, and then I went to university and studied it. But it took me a while to really find sort of it just took me a while to figure out what it was I wanted to do in life. Really, I did lots of different things. I studied graphic design because that felt like the most sensible of all the art kind of subjects. It felt like there was a job at the end of a graphic design course, and I got some jobs doing graphic design, but it never really kind of got my juices flowing like drawing did. Drawing was always the thing that I loved doing the most. And I went and taught at so I studied in London, but then I came back to my hometown of Bedford, and I taught at Bedford College, where I taught all kinds of different art. So I taught graphics, and I taught animation, and I taught drawing, and I taught fine art and everything really. And I was only supposed to do that for a few 6 months to a year to sort of pay off some student debts and things. And I just absolutely fell in love with teaching. I just absolutely loved being in that environment and kind of doing. I was teaching, but it's a cliche to say, but I was teaching, but I was learning so much from the students, and we were learning together basically, because I wasn't much older than the students actually. I was like, I don't know, 4 or 5 years older than a lot of them. And so I ended up doing that for like 10 years or 9 years, when even I was only supposed to be there for not even a year really. And it wasn't until I started my family, so pretty similar to Anne. We just had our first child, and we were saving for a house. And, you know, I was growing up and probably getting a bit kind of long in the tooth, I guess. And, or felt like I was, at least. And I just sort of said, look, what have I always loved doing? You know, even just looking back at school, what was my favorite thing to do? And it was sitting in that art room and just kind of creating new art and creating new things and creating all these characters. And I just thought, well, let's give it a go. You know, I'd had lots of nice comments about my illustrations, and I'd made comics for my brothers and sisters and friends and things. And I just started doing it. I just started putting things online. So again, you know, things like Twitter and Facebook were very helpful to the formation of my early illustration career. And then after a couple of years of doing that, I realized that I'd built up some sort of momentum and was getting some nice kind of comments from publishers and agents and things. And I just decided to kind of take the leap of faith, really. And yeah, I quit my full-time sensible job, and we had to put our house buying on hold a little bit. And my wife was very, 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 very understanding and said, look, let's just see how this goes for a year. You know, and if nothing happens, then maybe, you know, we might have to go back to teaching or something. So I did that, and you know, within the first few months of that year, I got a meeting with Bright Illustration Agency, which again, they found me on Twitter. So similar to Anne, you know, Twitter was a very important stepping stone in all of this. And yeah, they got me. I signed to Bright, and then within a couple of months, they got me my first meeting with a publisher, and that was or with an editor. And it was Katie Cotton at Francis Lincoln Children's Books, and she signed me up to make The Bear and the Piano, and then it's been bonkers ever since. Basically, it's been really crazy, but absolutely lovely, absolutely brilliant. I still can't. Every day, I sort of can't quite believe that I get to do this every day. It's incredible, really. So yeah, that in a nutshell. That in a nutshell is my story.
Well, it's great to be a bonkers life, because that your illustrations are amazing, and I think that's one of the things that really struck me looking at the book, is that the text and the illustrations work together in perfect harmony to create that really powerful, very moving, and for me, an outstanding reading experience. Yeah. So can I ask you a little bit about what was your collaborative process that enabled you to achieve that amazing synergy?
Well, it's funny, really, because I was sent Anne's beautiful text. Gosh, when was it, Anne? We talked about this before, haven't we? It was in 2019, I think. No, it was earlier.
It was earlier. It was 2017, I think.
Oh, crikey. Okay, so it was 2017. I think it was towards the end of 2017 I got the text. Yeah, it would be the end, yeah. And because I was living in the bonkers world of what The Bear and the Piano had given me, I was very busy, and there were lots of projects coming in, and I'd signed up to a lot of projects. But I read this text, and I was like, well, I just absolutely love this. I love this idea. I love this story. Similar to what Katie had just said, it just felt like there was so much emotion in those words. And I just really saw the potential of it, that it was a book that is very much, you know, even way back in 2017, before everything happened of the past year, I very much knew this was a book that was needed and would be kind of helpful and useful. And I remember talking to my agent, and she was like, look, we can't fit this in for a good long while yet. And I remember saying, well, is there anything we can juggle and stuff? And it was all getting a bit complicated. And so we approached, we approached Templar and said, look, you know, I'd love to do this, but unfortunately it's going to be, you know, 18 months to 2 years until I can properly focus on it. Which sounds bonkers now. It sounds like that's a crazy amount of time. And it is a crazy amount of time. And I was fully expecting, you know, them to say, well, no, that's too long. But thankfully they didn't. They said, no, look, we really want to make this happen. And I think they could see the kind of partnership between myself and Anne really kind of working.
No, they were really excited. They said, we think we might get David Litchfield, and I was very excited. And they said we might have to wait for a couple of years, but it was very exciting. It was
18 months? It was definitely over a good.
It was a good long
time over a year that we had to wait.
Yeah, but they were very keen right from the beginning, from the very first meeting.
I was super grateful that they and both them and you, Anne, were willing to wait so long.
Yeah, definitely.
Because it was just one of those books, and even my agent said when she presented the text to me, she said, "This is a bit unusual. It's probably not like anything you've been presented with before." And as soon as she said that was like, well, that sounds like the best thing ever. That's even before I read it. I thought, well, that's intrigued me so much. And yeah, I'm just so happy that it was able to work that way. So yeah, that's how it began, really.
And basically, you worked with the designer, didn't you, as well, David? And
so I worked with Genevieve and Alison Ritchie. Genevieve Webster, who I don't know if she's here, but she won't mind me saying is a very talented designer.
I was going to comment on that in a little while.
But I worked very closely with them, and I guess that's how it worked. From my experience, and it's not that much experience, it's like 5 years experience, but it's kind of, and I don't know if this is right, Anne, but I'm going to say it anyway, but it's very rare for sort of, I always assumed that an author and illustrator would literally be sitting in the same room together.
Yeah, no,
kind of be like, what do you think of this idea? What do you think of that idea? But it just doesn't work like that. I mean, maybe that's how it used to work. I don't even know, but it's very much here's the text, let's see what you can come up with, and everything's obviously run by Anne, I'm assuming, but
I only did two bits of feedback, really. One was to make sadness look a bit sadder in one of the
that's right.
in one of the spreads, and one of them was to make the little boy on the bike who was having the day off look happier.
That's right.
And those are my only two bits of feedback. The rest,
but that's where working with a designer and I guess Genevieve took on the role of art director as well, which is usually the case, that those roles are combined. It's where she was like invaluable, really, because it was like I got this text and I kind of just was throwing lots of different ideas and sketching out really, really scruffy kind of sketches and stuff at her. And Genevieve was very good at sort of saying, look, this bit's working, that bit's maybe not, let's reconsider some of this, and just helping with ideas and ideas development. And it's always reassuring when an illustrator gets a certain amount of freedom to kind of just here's the text, just see what you can come up with. And that was definitely how it was at the start. And then it's like, okay, let's see what you've got, let's see all these different ideas, and let's kind of hone them down a bit and kind of consider other options on some of the things.
Well, that's one of the exciting things about being a picture book writer. That's one of my favorite things, is when you're working with an illustrator. It's just really exciting to see what they're going to do. It's not and when I write the text, I expect there to be spaces for the illustrator. I try to create space for the illustrator to do what they do best. So it's really absolutely exciting for me. I want to see what people do. I don't.
Well, that's lovely to know, because it's almost, it's a very, it's stressful is not the right word, but there's always a bit of tension when I send the artwork off, and Genevieve will say, well, I'm going to be showing this to Anne in the next few days.
Yeah. Oh, it was fantastic. It was amazing.
No, it was always a lovely feeling when I got really positive feedback from Anne. So I was really pleased with how it went. It was one of those books that just sort of, it felt really natural as well to be sort of doing it. There actually wasn't too many kind of like tweaks needed on what I did, because I could really sort of see what you know, and that's not me showing off at all. That's a comment on Ann's text, because it was just so rich, and it was just so, like, I could almost instantly sort of see what it was that this book could be, and yeah, no, I'm just really pleased with how it all turned out, really.
Yeah.
Brilliant, thank you. And I know you're going to read the book while David shows the pictures, but before you do that, can I just ask you, because I know the idea for the book came from a particularly poignant moment, and would you just talk us through that?
Well, yes. So I was a carer for my mother and father, and my mother died in 2014. And my dad died in 2017, just after his 90th birthday. And I went to a talk at our church, and by a lovely man called Chris Chapman, and I've ended up dedicating the book to him, the man who gave the talk, because in the talk, he quoted from someone I'd never heard of called Etty Hillesum, who was a young Dutch Jewish woman who wrote a diary and lots of philosophical thoughts whilst living through Nazi occupation in Holland. And then eventually she died in the Holocaust. And he quoted from something that she'd written, and we put it in the front of the book. So Etty Hillesum said, "Give your sorrow all the space and shelter in yourself that is its due. For if everyone bears grief honestly and courageously, the sorrow that now fills the world will abate. But if you do instead reserve most of the space inside you for hatred and thoughts of revenge, from which new sorrows will be born for others, then sorrow will never cease in this world. And if you have given sorrow the space it demands, then you may truly say life is beautiful and so rich." And it was give your sorrow all the space and shelter in yourself that is its due. And, my dad had died, and my mum. And as well as that, during the time I was a carer, I was very lucky. My GP recommended me to a psychotherapist trainee. And so during the time I was a carer, I had a lot of support from this person who was training to be a psychotherapist. And so I felt like I'd learned a lot about how you need to accept when you're sad or you're sorrowful. And I didn't choose sorrow. I didn't use the word sorrow. I think I just felt maybe sadness was the way I would naturally talk about it. And as I was writing it as well, I felt it encompassed big things and little things. So that's why I started with sadness has come to live with me. And it's about how there are some things that you just can't get over. You know, if someone you love dies, it's not something that will ever go away. It's not something you just cheer up, you'll always get another dad. Yeah. It's not like that. So, but you still have to live in that with that loss, and still have to experience happiness and be open to love. So that's what inspired me, really.
Thank you. Yeah. So can you both now, could you read the book to us so that our audience is able to enjoy and listen to you and look at the pictures?
Okay, so it's our cover, designed by Genevieve, and it's a Shelter for Sadness, Ann Booth and David Litchfield, and that's the lovely end papers. That's what they're called, aren't they?
They are indeed.
End papers. So for the first page says, "Sadness has come to live with me, and I am building it a shelter." There you can see sadness with the little heart.
Oh.
So turn over.
I think you've gone from me. 1 second. Oh, you're back. Did I disappear or did you disappear?
You disappeared.
I don't know.
Oh, okay. I think I'm back anyway.
Yes,
Sorry.
Okay, so I'll say it again. Sadness has come to live with me, and I am building it a shelter. I am building a shelter for my sadness and welcoming it inside. And I love David's picture of sadness and the heart. which I'm sure David will talk about later. But so we turn over now.
Oh, have I frozen again?
No.
Yes.
Am I back?
Okay.
Yes, you.
Yes. I am giving it a space for it to sit or lie down, to curl up very small or be as big as it can be, to run around or stand still, to be very, very noisy or very, very quiet, or anything in between.
Oh, I don't know whose connection's the one that's the problem. It's probably me.
Okay.
Yeah, you can. I think you can turn the page now, David.
In this shelter for sadness, it can turn to the wall or look out through the window in the middle of the night or in the day. The windows will open to let sounds in or close to keep them out. The shelter I will build for my sadness will have light from the sun or from the moon and stars. But the windows will have curtains that sadness can draw when it wants to, and there will be candles or lamps if sadness needs them. Lots and lots of light, or no light at all. Sadness can sit in darkness if it wants to, whatever it feels like. Because this is the shelter for my sadness, and it has a right to be there. And I will make my shelter strong, so that in winter, sadness will have a safe shelter against the storms. But I will give it a little garden too, so that in spring, birds will come and build their nests, and green shoots will peek through the dark earth. In summer, roses will bloom, and their scent will steal in under the door, and my sadness can open the windows and breathe in and smell them, if it wants to. In autumn, it can look out at the trees and cry when the leaves turn red and orange and fall to the ground. Or it can go out and walk through the leaves and hear the sounds they make. It can build bonfires and dance around them, or sit quietly and watch the flames. Anything it needs to. Sometimes I will visit my sadness in its shelter every day, every hour if needed. Sometimes we will run into each other's arms and hug and cry and talk. And sometimes just sit next to each other, saying nothing. Sometimes I will be too busy to visit sadness for a while, but that is okay too. I have built a good shelter for my sadness, and it is safe inside, and nobody will hurt it. And that's the illustration that I asked David to make the little boy happier. So that because sometimes we don't give ourselves permission to be happy when we're grieving. I can visit it whenever I need to, whenever it calls to me. And whenever sadness wants, it can come out of its shelter and hold my hand. And we will look out at the world and discover how beautiful it is together. The end.
It's beautiful.
Thank you, David.
Thank you.
Thank you.
every time I look at it, I still get that same feeling that I did for the first time I explored it. So I'd recommend to all our people out there to get a copy and have a look at it. Can I just ask you a couple of questions about the book, and then talk to David a little about some of the illustrations? First of all, was it a deliberate decision not to give sadness a specific focus? We don't know what is causing the little boy's sadness, which in many ways means that it encompasses all our sadnesses.
Yes, no, definitely. I think in terms of it being, it's really nice for me to have heard back from adults as well as children, that adults and children have been helped by it. Yeah. But when I was writing it as a picture book text, and felt really, it's really important to be able to recognise that that there isn't that you can be sad about small things as well as big things. So obviously my dad had died, that's really big, but I don't think it's helpful to sort of dismiss small sadnesses either, and like one of my favorite children's books is Dogger by Shirley Hughes, and she's so good at recognizing that, losing a toy can be heartbreaking. And I remember going to a school and a little girl being in floods of tears because her friend wouldn't let her borrow a rubber, and that was a sadness for that little girl that needed a shelter. So and I think also, in times of, I didn't write this in a time of pandemic, but in normal life we have sadnesses, and then we can look at other countries or look at other people we know and think, oh, just buck up a bit, other people have it worse than you. But it actually doesn't help. It doesn't help if you don't let yourself be sad when you're sad. It doesn't help anyone. So yeah, that was definite decision.
Yeah, actually that was one of the other things that really struck me, that coming through was the message that, yes, my sadness might be actually something small when you compare it to the big sadness of, 128,000 people dying of COVID-19. But actually, that sadness for an individual is equally valid to a larger sadness. And I think linked also with that was...
Yes, and I'm...
No, sorry, you were going to say something.
Sorry. No, I just think it's the other side of love, isn't it? So, if you love something,
yeah,
you're going to feel sad when you lose it. But you don't want to not love in order to hide. And some people are very sensitive, and they will love things that other people will not think are important. But their sadness is important. So yeah. if you love a pencil and you've lost it, that's a genuine sadness if you've loved that pencil. Yeah. And some people maybe not be sad very much, but it's maybe because they haven't loved enough. It's not something to be ashamed of if you feel sadness. And I think sometimes I get annoyed when I hear adults talking about cheer up or resilience with children, or that children are expected to be happy all the time. But really, if we were happy all the time in this world, we'd be psychopaths, wouldn't we? Really, if we didn't experience, because our world is full of loss, small losses and big losses. Yeah. So, sometimes it's the best thing. It's something to celebrate that someone is capable of feeling sad. It's not, and it was something worrying if someone was never sad. You'd think, gosh, there must be something blocked off in them. It's not the same as it's not necessarily a problem. Obviously, if you're sad all the time and you can't experience any joy, that's a problem. But that was part of the thing Etty Hillesum was saying, that if you give a shelter to your sadness, you can then appreciate how beautiful the world is. And if you're told to, have a stiff upper lip, or be resilient in the wrong way, the wrong interpretation of resilience, you're just ending up deadening yourself and not feeling anything, or or feeling something else, or just feeling very tired, or grumpy even. Yeah. And you might need a big cry.
And I actually linked in with that. The central character is a boy, and often boys are told, boys don't cry, boys, you've got to be strong. So again, was it a conscious decision to make that main character male?
No, it wasn't. But I'm so happy that David did, and I was for exactly that reason. You know, that I do think going into schools, I noticed that smaller boys and boys are at a disadvantage in many ways emotionally. You know, in that they're told to man up from a very young age, and they've got pressure from society to be strong and not to be emotional. And even the books that for children, you know, the nurturing books about adopting little puppies are often focused on girls, and boys are supposed to like farts and and why not? Why can't girls like farty books as well? But why can't everybody love all of those things? And I think I've found little boys in schools very, very emotional and very open and very innocent and very before they somehow get this pressure that they've got to be tough. So I want to get to the little boys, I want to get to the little boys to not be ashamed, to be sad.
Yeah. Thank you. So, David, can I ask you to talk us through your illustrative processes and the techniques you use and how you decided what techniques to use for this particular book?
Yeah, so, I mean, it was basically, so I got Ann's text, I got the manuscript for the book, and then I just, where is it? I've got my sketchbook here. As I do with most of the projects, is I just started sketching really, and I have a lot of these sketchbooks. I have them everywhere, and they're full of very scruffy, sketchy pictures, as a sketchbook probably should be, right? So here we go. So, I mean, these are not great. This is not great art that I'm about to show you now, but I was kind of thinking about what sadness should look like. What the sadness should be, and in fact maybe I can show you. I'll show you the sketchbook first, but I've also got a few things on my computer that I can try and be technical with. And I was just coming up with kind of little ideas, like one of the first ones was like a teardrop idea, but I kind of thought he looked a bit too much like an onion, so I don't think that really worked. And then I also had an idea of making sadness a cloud. But that was a bit too similar to the fantastic book Ruby's Worries by Tom Percival, and it just felt a bit like let's try and do something a bit different. And it wasn't until I sort of started really thinking about myself as a child, and this goes back to what Anne said about what made why I chose a boy to be the main character, and it was because I automatically just saw myself in the character's kind of situation, and thought of myself, and I wasn't thinking about anything else apart from that. Really, I was just like, this is how I felt when I was small, and so that's the reason why it's a boy. Really, is because I was totally just thinking, putting myself in the role of this child, but then I was thinking, if I was told to articulate as that small boy, what does sadness look like, or even just like, what do you feel like when you're sad? There's so many different things that there's so much confusion, there's so many different emotions involved in it, so many different thoughts, and it just felt right to just kind of do a big kind of scribble, really, just a big kind of a big mess, and just get it out through the pencil onto paper, whatever kind of anxiety you're feeling and what kind of anger or sadness or any kind of emotion, just do a scribble. And then I literally did just do that. I was like, let's just do lots of scribbles, and sometimes they turned into something that maybe looked a bit too ghost-like, and I thought that maybe wasn't the right kind of approach. Sorry, it's sort of scattered all the way through, and kind of things like that, which again are maybe a bit too kind of scary looking for what we were going for, and adding a bit of color and just I mean, this is one of the great things about sketchbooks, is because I can draw in these knowing that no one's going to see them. Although here I am showing all of you lovely people what I've done. But there's a freedom to that where you can just kind of go for it. And for this project, that was perfect, because it's literally, that's what sadness was. It was just like, just kind of go crazy with it. That's something else entirely. But yeah, no, lots and lots of pages of just kind of trying to get this scribble right. Well, I think I've got a few more in here. One sec. We've already seen those ones. Yeah, just kind of scribbling. There we go. Just kind of doing lots of different versions. And then I started adding arms and legs and things, and just giving it a bit more of a kind of a, I don't know whether a human feel is right, but, you know, just giving it a bit more of a character, I guess.
Yes, a lovely character.
I mean, it's one of the great thing is like when you draw this sadness, you kind of feel less sad, which is quite a nice thing, really.
Well, that's the ironic thing is, you know, when you do recognize that you're sad, it gives you space to be happy as well. If you ignore your sadness, it will just keep bothering you and dragging you down. But
totally,
you know, if you have a good cry, or, you know, if you honor it, then you can.
Well,
that's why a lot of people like sad films, isn't it? That gives them permission.
Exactly. And this is totally that. It's like, let's just get it all out in this scribble.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's kind of how I came up with the kind of character for sadness. But as I said, I've got a few things on my computer which I'm going to try and be very clever and share with you. Now this is obviously technology, so it could all go wrong. And I'll just spend a few minutes doing this. Advanced sharing options. Oh, blimey. Multiple participants can one participant can share it.
Yeah, you want the one.
I want that one, right? Sorry, everyone. You're having to watch me learn how to use Zoom.
No, we're all ready. So everybody's
Here we go. Share screen. Okay, so you want my desktop, don't you? There you go.
That's it.
So this is so here's a few things basically. So let's have a look. Concept art, would it be in there? Okay, so here's some of the first kind of rough drew. So obviously that became one of the first pages, but you can kind of see it's all very loose. I'm starting to sort of experiment with some of the textures and so forth. And that's kind of a mixture of like my hand drawing stuff scanned in to my computer and just drawing straight onto the computer as well. Let's see, this was when the character started to sort of form quite nicely for me, because it just kind of had that kind of scruffy, sketchy look, but you know, that you can see that the character's coming through and maybe a little bit more, and that's when it started to take shape a little bit more. I think I've got some covers. One second, let me. Is this it? Oh, it's going to take a while to load. Maybe we'll come back to that one. Yeah, so it was just a really good fun sketchbook. Here we go. It was just a really good fun. It was a great fun book to kind of develop and kind of you know, go through all the different versions of what it could be and how sadness can look. And as I say, these are as sketchy as you could get, really. And that was my first idea for the shelter, actually, like almost like a treehouse kind of look.
That's interesting.
But yeah, this was the very first thing. This is actually written on Ann's script, as you can see. Sort of as I'm reading it, I'm starting to think, you know, what could be there. So I mean, why I'm showing you this is because it's almost unique, this book, in that you know, from that first moment of reading Ann's script, like literally as I'm reading it, as this sketch sort of shows, I was kind of getting the idea almost instantly, and it didn't change a great deal. It was like, you know, let's come back. I'm going to come back to this non-share screen. There we go, stop share. It was almost like, you know, that's what when I said it just felt so natural to do this book. It just came together even though there was a long wait between me saying, yes, I want to do it, to actually being able to do it.
No, it's very exciting for me it's lovely for me seeing your sketches on the text. That's just great. Yeah, it's really
brilliant. And I think,
as an illustrator, there's lots of different levels of sketches that we show. There's the for your eyes only sketch, which is just for me, and then it's kind of like, you know, you start going a bit higher and start sharing a few more as you feel brave enough.
Yeah, it's really, thank you very much for sharing everything. That's great.
That's okay.
And I think, are you going to do a little live drawing tonight? Are you going
sorry.
to do that?
I think you dropped out on me.
Oh, sorry. I know we talked that you might do a live drawing. Are you still going to do that?
1 minute. I think you've gone.
Are you there, David?
Oh, sorry, can't hear.
Hello?
Oh no.
I think have we lost you, David? I think we might have lost you. Hello, can you? I think we've lost David. Well, maybe he'll be able to re-emerge like he's done a couple of times earlier. So maybe I'll just yeah, I think he's gone and he'll probably come back. So maybe briefly while he's waiting, we're waiting for him to come back. Let me ask you, Anne, when you feel sad, what do you do to make yourself feel happier? For me, it's knitting or a phone call to my sister. What about for you?
Well, I'm very lucky because I'm not living on my own. So I genuinely ask for a hug, and I'm sorry if that's upsetting to anybody who's living on their own or watching this soon. The other thing I would do is I would actually go. My husband built me a little shed in the garden, and I often do go and light a candle and say a prayer, and sometimes I just go and have a cry. I don't I just sit quietly, and if I feel sad, then I'll just feel sad, and it does actually make you feel a lot better. Cups of tea are great, chocolate, and lovely films, happy films or sad films, but not too sad. Actually, if I'm really sad, I don't think I can cope with really sad films. And also I've really enjoyed, especially when I was a carer and I was feeling very sad, I couldn't cope with very brilliant books but which had unhappy endings. And so children's books are really good to read for adults because they generally tend to have hope in them. So I read a lot of children's books by other people, and also books, escapist, like romantic fiction doesn't sound great, but it's really very positive. Or P.G. Wodehouse, I really like him, makes me laugh. So we're going for walks in the countryside, all those things. But sometimes you just have to be sad, you just have to allow yourself to be sad.
Okay, well, again, while we're waiting, let's take some comments and questions. I think we probably won't have.
I think David's back in the day. I saw David.
Hi.
Hi, are you back?
I'm somewhere. Anyway, I'm sorry about that.
No, that's okay.
We just moved house and the internet's still a bit ropey. So
yeah, no, that's fine. I was just about to move on to some of the comments and questions.
Oh, okay.
From
Brilliant.
our audience, and two actually that I was going to pick up. One that says that this could be a really beautiful book for adopters to share with their new family, and one that says I'd love it for the book to be made available in child and adolescent mental health services. And I think both of those points, particularly because for children who are in care, often they have sadnesses that they can't articulate.
Yeah.
So I think that, have you had any thoughts about how to reach out maybe to virtual schools, child and adolescent mental health services? I think we could have a really good conversation about routes to get the message of this book out to a really wide audience.
Oh, wow. I mean, I'm sure David, I'd be very open to that. I'd want to work. I would definitely want to work with professionals, because I wouldn't want to. I'd want to have guidance. I wouldn't want to just launch myself at children and
no,
and potentially traumatize them, but with working with other professionals, on their guidance, I would love to do something. That makes me very happy, ironically, to feel that the book about sadness could help children in care, or that'd be fantastic.
And sorry,
there has been a lot of the feedback has been along those lines. Actually, it's about this book could be used for in a number of different situations. There are a lot of the schools that have picked up on it have said, we're going to find this more and more helpful, I think, as the kids start coming back and settling into school a lot more. A lot of these teachers have tweeted me and said some lovely things about the book, and one of them is, we know that we're going to be using this book not just for story time purposes, but we're actually, we're going to be using this to help individual children who we feel that need that extra bit of support, or at least need to identify with something along these lines. So it's really heartwarming when you hear.
Yeah, it is. And I was really glad when a teacher said she was using it with year 5s. I thought that's great, because I want it to be used across the age range. And
definitely.
Yeah. Another comment from one of our audience saying, I agree, some sadnesses remain, and it is important to learn to accept and continue to embrace life. I love that sadness is not labelled, and how we have to feel is not prescribed. Books that allow the reader to make it what they need it to be are just beautiful. And Etty's work is very powerful. So thank you for drawing attention to it. Another comment, this has been such a helpful book for our school since the children have returned, and I look forward to sharing it with more of our children.
Oh, great.
That's wonderful.
It's really great.
Really nice. I'm just going through, beautiful book. Thank you.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah. I find it really moving and amazing that, I wrote it such a long time ago, and because David was booked up, that it's come out now, and I feel very grateful that it's that it's been of use during lockdown. I feel very grateful to be part of a big group of people who are all trying to help, and so that the teachers and librarians and therapists and friends, all the people using it to help others it's very humbling, to be a part of that is really lovely. Yeah.
Lovely. I'm a play therapist for children looked after, and the book is in my play therapy room. I love it. It would be a great conversation starter, fantastic resource for play therapy as a therapeutic story.
Wow, that's so great.
That's lovely.
That's the best thing anyone, it's so great, because you don't know, when you write something, you don't know whether, I'm really grateful to my agent, Anne Clark, because I wrote that and sent it to her, and she immediately saw something in it and immediately sent it to Templar. So, I really like the fact that so many people are involved in producing a book, and then even in selling it and using it with children. And, there's so many people involved, the marketing people, I suppose, and the sales and everything. So you are part of one big,
And I would also say about the book that the production quality, design quality is amazing. And I know Katie mentioned, and you both have mentioned Genevieve, but I think the way she's designed the book is incredible. The way the text fits on the page and the illustration work with the text and the end pages. It felt to me that the end pages actually wrap the story. It's the the shelter for the story. I just think there are so many good things about it. And
I love it that it's beautiful, because I think I noticed someone on Twitter, or someone said, "Oh, it sounds a bit of a scary book," and I hadn't really thought about that. And I thought, oh gosh, but it actually, the production has made it such a beautiful book, and David's illustrations, and my words were trying not to be scary. And I think it will be good if children and adults can just take on board that sadness can be beautiful, not indulging in sadness, not sort of self-absorbed sadness, but as an honor, as a mark of honor to love. It's the other side of love.
When working with Genevieve, it was very good to sort of see the subtle little things that you can do from taking it from looking a bit scary to kind of to going into this other direction. And it is things like just the color of the text against, if you take away all these little dots of color, that is quite a scary cover, I guess. But because we kind of decided to play around with colors and add little kinds of little tiny spots of color and here and there, and I don't know if it picks out there, but it kind of sparkles as well.
Yeah, it sparkles. It's so exciting. It's lovely.
Yeah,
all these little design elements kind of elevate it away from what could be seen as quite a scary cover into something completely different. And I love it. It's one of my favorite books I've worked on, definitely.
Yeah, it's a lovely object to hold as well, isn't it, David? So
it really is. Yeah,
you can
absolutely.
You can cuddle it. It's a nice. Yeah.
We also had a sort of couple of related questions about whether the cross of the window was, this is someone who is a Christian, was saying, was the cross of the window deliberate or just a coincidence?
It was a coincidence, really, but I'm very happy for it to be kind of, interpreted any way that people would like to interpret it. And it's basically, so I see it as two windows. There's a window on one side and a window on the other. And though this is based on a window in my house, I had a circular window with that. It was a long time ago. It was like in my first house that I was, lived in, and I just remember it having this cross. And so that's one of the reasons why I drew it. But absolutely, however people want to interpret the images, I mean, that's one of the great things about being an image creator, I guess, is that people interpret it however they choose to, and that's what I love about it, definitely.
Okay, and a last question, I think, because I'm sadly running out of time. I've got so many more questions I'd like to talk through with you. But the question for you, David, can you tell how you create the right balance between light and darkness in your illustrations?
So it's all, a lot of what I do is experimenting. There's a big chunk of every day basically where I put aside let's just experiment with kind of textures and colors, and I create lots of sort of watercolor washes and throw acrylic paint everywhere and things, and then I'll scan them into my computer and kind of overlay them all and things. But also I take lots of photographs. So I'll take photographs of the bark of a tree or some pavement or just a nice sky, where there's lots of clouds and stuff. And I'll throw those in as well and just sort of experiment with them and add color and add all kinds of things, really. So a big part of this, I mean, that's one of the reasons why I love doing this book, is because there was so much of that going on. In particular, let's have a quick look at spread light. Where is it? The one where they're having a cup of tea together. I've gone past it. So a spread like that one, where there's quite a lot of drama going on in the sky. That's all kinds of different layers of texture, sort of overlaid on each other on Photoshop. But it starts off sort of in on a piece of paper or in a sketchbook, and then I'll scan it in. So that's just me kind of, I'm not the greatest painter. I do make a mess and it kind of goes all over the place, but it kind of works out for me that way. This kind of acrylic paint, and then this is, I think, watercolor, and I just kind of throw them all together basically. But in terms of dark and light, I mean this book, like I say, there was a lot of kind of contrast between dark and light, and I think that was part of the way of kind of moving the narrative along, letting the color and letting the lighting kind of help tell a bit of the story. I try and do that a lot in all my books, but I think especially in this book, darkness and light is very much tied in with what we're trying to tell in the story, and I think that kind of worked really well in the images. And I mean, no more kind of illustrated than that one, where it's it's pretty much the same picture, but kind of bathed in light. And I thought that was almost like kind of told the story of the book itself. Where there's darkness, there is going to be light. There's always there's always light at the end of the night. And I don't know. So I mean, it's just something I enjoy doing with all my books, kind of playing around with lighting and shadows and stuff. But it just felt particularly apt for this one. But to answer the question, it's all a bit of an experiment, and sometimes there can be happy accidents that work that I wasn't expecting at the start of the process. So I don't know, that's if anyone's looking for advice, it's just kind of a couple of hours or even a couple of minutes a day, just sort of experimenting with texture and see what happens, really.
Okay, thank you. And sadly, we have run out of time, so I need to kind of bring the evening to a close. But I just kind of wanted to say, really, that doing the job that I do, we see lots of different books, and every so often there's a book that comes along that just brings me out in goosebumps. And for me, this is one of those books.
Thank you.
It reaches out to readers young and old, and I think it speaks to them on many levels, and it's a message that's vital, not just in the time that we're in at the moment, but at any time. I do really think it's a truly beautiful book, and it's about finding hope in your sadness.
Thank you.
So I'm sure this is going to be a book that does very well, and we will be all promoting it
thank you so much,
as we can. And so before I thank you, just to remind people that you can order a copy of the book via bookshop.org or your local bookshop, and in fact someone posted, at least one person has posted to say tonight, I've just ordered it.
Yay.
So if I can, as I always do, let people know the next virtual event, which will be on Thursday, the 22nd of April, with Jen Carney and Katie Kirby, two hilarious middle grade debut novels. I also will say, if you don't want us to keep your details on file so that we can let you know about our future events, just email me and I will remove you from our list. And please do go to our website and sign up to our newsletter. I need to say a few thank yous to Templar for asking us to host this launch tonight. Thanks, Kirsten, and all the people from Templar who are here. For all of you for coming tonight and for supporting us by booking authors through us and coming to our events. But finally, a huge thank you to you, Anne, and to you, David, for such a great evening and for such an awesome picture books. So as I said, this is a celebration of a magnificent book. So you can, at this point, if you feel if you're not shy, switch on your mics, switch on your cameras, raise your glasses, raise your mugs of coffee, and join me in saying congratulations to Anne and David on an absolutely brilliant book.
Thank you.
Yay!
Brilliant.
Well done.
Yay! Yay!
Thank you very much.
So cheers. I hope you've all enjoyed tonight. And that we'll see you again soon. So go away and tweet if you've had a good time tonight. See you soon.
Bye.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.
Thank you.
Thank you for listening.
Bye.